All right. Let's see. So again, I'm Dr. Anthony Edwards, and this is Anatomy and Physiology 2401 lecture. Let's see. I'm going to share my screen so that you can see, those of you who are watching on the computer, will be able to see what we're going over in class today. All right. Okay, so again, Dr. Anthony Edwards, you can refer to me as Dr. Edwards. And again, office hours are 9:30 to 11 a.m. on Wednesdays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays from 10:40 a.m. to 12:10 p.m. Also, Fridays from 8 a.m. to noon, I have online office hours. If you want to email me, make sure you email me using this Canvas email, or just email me within Canvas. Don't send it to my Tanola email. Because it's just there's a lot of things that go there, and I want to be able to respond to you quickly. So email me within Canvas. So a little bit about me. So I am basically obviously your instructor. I graduated from Texas A&M University with a bachelor's in biomedical science. I have a master's health administration from A&M Health Science Center and a doctorate in educational leadership from Tarleton State University. A lot of different methods to be successful in this class, and a lot of things you can do. We have mastering A&P activities, discussions, quizzes, and writing assignments and exams. Let's see, as far as technology, you'll need computer, access to, some sort of speakers, a webcam, because we will be taking tests using HonorLock. I do use Google Documents a lot in this class for some of the materials that I create for you. So let's go, you'll go here in the course and go start here. It'll take you to the modules. Let's see. All right. So if you do that, it takes you to this screen in the modules, shows you the lecture schedule. All right, so this will take you here, and you can see generally as an overview, what are we going to do each week? All right, so this week is Introduction to A&P, Chapter 1. Next, this is the spring schedule. So, but basically, you've got the schedule, but every week, it's a different topic. So next week is Chapter 2. Then the following week is Chapter 3. All right, first quiz will be over Chapter 1. And the exam will be over chapters 1, 2, and 3. All right. So let's go back. Now I'll make sure that has the fall link to the fall one. All right. So you have your syllabus. You can read that. You have a link to it. Okay, 4 hours. You get a grade for both lecture and lab that's combined. We go over critical thinking, communication, and empirical or quantitative skills, and teamwork. All right, lots of these learning outcomes here as far as using anatomical terminology, things of that nature. We'll go a little bit more detail into that in some of the other portions here. You have a sectional syllabus for this section. Okay, one thing I do want to mention here talks about alternate operations. So obviously this is the time of COVID-19, so we may have altered operations. And so it could be that, the class, we have to quarantine, or the building, or the campus. So it could be any number of those things, hopefully none of those things. In that event, anything that you would have turned in class, you turn in online, right? And then I would just be posting materials in Canvas for you so that you can keep up with things in the class. All right. So face coverings, let's see, everybody's got the face covering. We want to make sure it's over the nose as well as the mouth. It is a requirement to wear face coverings inside the building. So I just want to make sure you know that it is a requirement. Also, it's a requirement if you can't social distance outside, you need to be wearing it. All right. So So if you can social distance outside, it's okay, but anytime you come in a building, you need to have the mask on. It's got to cover both nose and the mouth, okay? Can't just cover mouth and not the nose. Can't just be over the chin. It's got to cover the whole area, so. All right. So, but from, today going forward, you got to make sure you have a mask, okay? All right, so if you don't have a mask, I would have to ask you to leave. All right. So, and it would basically have to go through the discipline policy to go through if you don't wear a mask. All right, let's see. Anything else in here? Just make sure your face coverings are appropriate, right? You got to wear one, but just make sure they're appropriate. Let's see. All right, so how do we have assignments in the class? We have quizzes, mastering aim, and then that are just quizzes that you do in Canvas. We have quizzes that you do in mastering AMP. And we'll get into what mastering AMP is in just a minute. You also have exams, and those exams are going to be done using HonorLock again, so it'll record what you're doing while you're taking it. So you'll need a webcam, but also it watches if you're trying to use other resources or anything like that. And also watches if you try to, do other things online. The quizzes are not proctored, the exams are, and the final exam will be proctored. Normal grading scale, lecture is 70% of the course grade, and your lab's 30%. In the lecture, you got lecture quizzes that are 10% of the lecture grade, mastering AMP quizzes are 10%, exams are 60%, and the final exam is 20%. Okay, and then we just basically multiply those numbers times 70% to get your overall grade. All right, and a student can earn up to 2 points in their final lab average by good participation in lab and not exceeding the college attendance policy. Okay, so for lecture, you need the Martini textbook. It's probably going to be an online textbook. It comes with a Mastering AMP access code. You need to register your access code going through Canvas and going into the course, and we'll talk about that. All right, the lab, you need the Green, Robeson, and Strong book. If you're in the online lab, then you would be using Labster, okay, if any of you are taking it online. All right, let's see. So again, courses that are conducted via video conferencing could be recorded and shared for instructional purposes by the instructor, so I just want you to be aware of that. If you need testing services, go through testing. If you need disability services, make sure you contact the ADA student coordinator. Okay, so you have the lecture syllabus addendum. Let's see, we've gone through most of this already. Let's see. Student can have the final exam replace the lowest exam grade by participating in lecture activities and not exceeding college's attendance policy. So that's a reward for doing well in the final exam. So keep that in mind, when you're trying to look at your grades for the semester. All right, attendance policy, because this is a Tuesday, Thursday class, you can't have more than 3 absences, and 1 point can be deducted from the final average if you exceed, for every absence that exceeds that. So what I will say with that is, life happens, people get sick, whatever, I get that, especially right now with everything that's going on. So just keep me in the loop, because I don't want you to come if you're having symptoms, because that is a threat to everybody. Obviously, a lot of you want to go into healthcare, so we've got to take care of each other to make sure nobody gets sick. So if you are experiencing symptoms, just let me know. We'll figure things out as we go. All right, so that's part of our policy in general, but I understand COVID kind of makes things a little different this semester. So just keep me in the loop. Just don't turn assignments in late. You can get points deducted for assignments turned in late. Don't do it. Same for quizzes and exams. If you miss a quiz or an exam, you have to take a makeup. It's usually more difficult, so just try to do your best. The good news is because you're using online testing this semester, you have flexibility on when you take it. It won't be, you have to take it at the set time that we're in class. Usually I'll have it open for a day or two. So hopefully in that day or two, you should have the ability to do it. All right, let's see. Okay, course information sheet, a little different. Let's see, well, all right. So let's talk about registering your mastering A&P access code. So if you haven't done this yet, go to your Canvas course, click My Lab Mastering, and you can click the Pearson link. All right. Then you're going to get access to your Pearson course content. Enter your Pearson account username and password if you already have one to link your accounts. If you never used this product, or if you've never had a Pearson account, then you'll create one. You'll select create. Okay. Then you have to select an access or enter your access code. Came with what you bought from the bookstore, or if you bought it online, enter that in. If you haven't bought it yet, you can buy access with a credit card or PayPal. If you don't have the money today, there's temporary access, about 14 days. So there's no excuses for not signing up. If you are already, let's say you took a class last semester and your expiration date hasn't passed, you should be able to basically use that to register. If not, you may have to contact customer support and they help you set that back up. But just make sure that your expiration date hadn't passed. And there's information here to check your computer system requirements to make sure your computer works with mastering. All right, so I'll click My Lab Mastering, give you a sense for kind of what that looks like. Okay, here's the book. So if you've already set it up, it'll say Open My Lab Mastering, but you'll have access on the student side. Obviously I have a few more things I have access to, but you can get to your assignments. You have an e-text, so that's your textbook. That's how you access it. You click the e-text. You also have a study area where you've got quizzes and other activities, videos, and you can look at them by chapter. So whatever chapter you're on, you can click that and look at all the activities. Okay, you can also see your assignments that are due. One of the things that I do assign a lot of are dynamic study modules. And so they basically adjust to, as you read, it kind of figures out if you're getting them right or wrong and helps you figure out what you need to spend more time on. And I use that not as a substitute for reading, because you still need to read, but I realize that just reading the book doesn't really help everybody. So it gives you time to kind of practice and see what you understand and what you need help with. But there's, the e-text. So basically you click here. All right, and here's your book. All right, so you can go to the menu, click the chapter that we're on, read learning outcomes, and then read the chapter. You can click each section. Okay, so you can make the text bigger or smaller. You can bookmark to keep your place. Okay, I know it's not the same as reading a physical textbook, but you can use it on your phone. You can use it anywhere you go. All right. So you'll also show you your study area. So you have practice tests and quizzes, animations and videos. You have lab manual, study area. You've got practice anatomy lab for labs. So if you want to practice looking at the models and trying to quiz yourself, you can do that. You can also study by chapter. So it's all got arranged for you. You got different kinds of practice tests, e-texts, and you'll have different activities down here as well, depending on which chapter you're in. All right, so the Concept Center, that's down the hall, Concept Lab. You can use that study particularly for the lab practicals and quizzes, but you can also just go in there and get tutoring help if you'd rather get it from Ms. Parrott. She's got set times that if you click this link, it shows you when it's open. You can go in there. She has set times for different classes, so you can just go in there if you want. So these are the open and close times. All right, and it'll also have when she's got tutoring for specific classes. All right. So if you want to schedule a time, you can always come during office hours, but if you want to schedule a time where I just meet with you, you can use this link to do that. All right, so that is the kind of getting started overview. So we'll use the rest of the time to kind of start going over chapter 1. Any questions over what we've done so far? Okay. All right, so basically the way I organize the modules in here, you'll have learning activities module for the week, and then you'll have assignments and quizzes, so you'll know exactly what to do. Okay. All right, and so we do have some assignments due the first week. All right, so just make sure you keep up with that. But I also give you different activities to help you practice. Okay, links to the book, links to notes. All right, here's the link to the lecture presentation. All right, so we'll go over the full notes. Let's see, download. All right. So to think about it from a historical perspective, A&P, we've been studying the body for a long time, right? So start with Hippocrates in the Grecian period, where the Greeks are really important. You will have to know. So some of these, what I would recommend to you is I didn't print them out because of COVID. We have basically fill in the blank versions of the notes in Canvas. So if you want to come to class with those already printed and just fill in the blanks, you can, so you don't have to write everything. But also, you don't have to write everything because this is already in Canvas for you, okay? So the main thing is listen, write down a few things. So if you hear something that I say that's not written on there, write it in your notes, okay? But you will probably have a question or two that relates to historical perspective. So knowing the names of these different people, something really important about them. If you see things underlined, it's probably important. All right, so Hippocrates thought diseases were related to natural causes instead of displeasure of the gods. So that was a big idea then, because if you think about the Greeks, what they believed in these Greek gods, right? So then they thought that everything was caused by those Greek gods and mythology and everything. And so Hippocrates said, no, it's natural causes. So there's some other natural reasons. Okay, and he believed the body had 4 body humors. So you had a sanguine humor, which is related to the liver, yellow bile humor, which is related to the gallbladder, which stores your bile. You had phlegm humor associated with your lungs. If you think about like from coughing up phlegm. And you also had melancholic or black bile humor associated with your spleen. Okay, so being healthy meant you were in balance of those humors. And so for that reason, Hippocrates was considered the father of modern medicine. So when doctors take the Hippocratic Oath, they are essentially, saying, hey, we are basing our ideas on Hippocrates. Okay, and the Hippocratic Oath is to do no harm. All right, so what we'll learn later is that that concept's out of date, but it's basically has to do with the concept of balance or homeostasis. We'll learn more about that later. And when you get different diseases, you disrupt homeostasis. So the next person we'll talk about is Aristotle. Okay, I know you probably didn't think you were coming to A&P to learn about philosophers, right? But fortunately, everything is kind of related. All right. Studied animals, wrote these major books: History of Animals, Parts of Animals, Generation of Animals. All right, Scientific Method and Zoological Books. First known account of embryology. Scientific method, that's a huge thing. So if you ask something about who's involved with scientific method, it is Aristotle. All right, Aristostratus, father of physiology. He studied the heart, blood vessels, and the nervous system. Talked about how organs change. All right, and then we get into the Roman period. We have Galen here, and he dissected human cadavers. Okay, so that was a big movement forward, but mostly dependent on dissection of animals. I made some accurate observations, but also some errors. But you know, they're learning. But also, dissection is one of those things that over time has gone through. It's come in and out of fashion, and it was considered okay at that time. All right, but in the Middle Ages, they basically said no more dissecting cadavers. Okay, so they had to study the earlier works of Galen and others during that time. Okay, during the Renaissance, science kind of became important again. Okay, all right. You have Andreas Versalius at that time, father of modern anatomy, published the De Humani Corporis Fabrica, made some corrections to earlier works from other folks. So in the 17th and 18th centuries, you had William Harvey, and he published On the Movement of the Heart and Blood in Animals. All right, and Harvey is referred to as the father of modern physiology. So so what do we say? Who is the father of? So Versalius is the father of modern anatomy. Harvey is the father of modern physiology. Anybody ever heard of Anthony von Leeuwenhoek? You know, if you took some classes in chemistry, you might have heard of him. But basically, developed a better microscope, made observations of microorganisms as well as some microscopic human structures. So associate van Leeuwenhoek with the microscope. 19th and 20th centuries, where we start getting more modern cell theory about how cells work and understand structure and function in the body. And we also have, during this time, we have Mueller, and applied some other subjects to study of the human body, like physics, chemistry, and psychology. So you might think of those as separate subjects, but yes, they actually are somewhat related. All right, next big topic is scientific method. So it's how we get information about ourselves and the world. 6 steps. So I will tell you, you probably will see a question where you got to fill in the blanks on these. So it'll be words, it'll be the sentences there, and then you've got to fill in the blank, or you may have to put them in order. Okay? So just want you to be prepared for that. So you got to start out by defining the problem or question to be asked. Do your library research, find out what's been done before, and see if your problem or question has been done. You formulate your hypothesis or your solution, and then you test that hypothesis. And your hypothesis, remember, is your educated guess. All right? And how do you test the hypothesis? Through observation and experimentation. And then you collect and record data. You draw a conclusion. All right, so sometimes based on your information, you have to rethink your hypothesis and do more experiments. And then you publish your data or publish your results. All right, formulation of the theory. So the difference between a theory and a hypothesis is that a theory is a hypothesis that's been supported by observation or experimental evidence over a long period of time. So you have a hypothesis and it keeps getting supported and supported and supported. It can become a theory. Okay, so it's like a, you know, I guess the hypothesis is like the little kid and the theory is the grown up after it's kind of grown up and gotten developed. So how science works is that science actually try to disprove hypotheses. So you're trying to figure out if they're wrong, not necessarily confirm that they're right. So if you try to figure out that they're wrong and you find out, no, it's actually right, that makes your theory or hypothesis pretty strong. I mean, anybody can say, oh, I think I'm right, so I'm going to show all the reasons why I'm right. You know, you want to try to test it and really figure out if there are any holes in your theory or in your hypothesis. All right, so how do you explain things that happen in the world? Fancy word for natural phenomena. You have anthropomorphic explanations, and these can attribute human qualities to the behavior of lower organisms. This is not a valid method. Okay. Teleological explanations, and they can attribute purpose and reason to lower organisms and non-living materials. That's also not valid. Vitalistic explanations. Okay, it's attributing life processes to some vital force, which has not been found, and we don't think it exists. So this is considered a dead issue, right? All right, so what's left? Mechanistic explanations. And these attempt to explain life processes on the basis of principles of chemistry and physics. So you have modern science, it's mechanistic in its approach to problem solving. So how might you have to use that on exam? You're probably going to have to use that as an essay question. Now, I will tell you, your quizzes would be multiple choice. Your exams will have mostly multiple choice, some short answer. When I say essay, I mean like you're writing a couple of paragraphs, okay? You're not having to write 5 pages, okay? So sometimes I have students that panic on those things, and I tell you, I don't have time to grade 50 pages, and you don't have time to write it in the amount of time that you have to take the test. Just, you know, tell me what you know about it. It doesn't have to be long, okay? So let me go back, because it relates to another point in the modules. Let's see. So, all right, so now let's exam 2 review sheet. So I post these review sheets in here. So make sure you look at those too. Okay, study exam 1 review. So if you want to know what to study, this is what to study, okay? So for chapter 1, which is what your quiz will be over, these are the topics. We've already covered some of these, but this covers everything that we're going to go over. Now, quiz is over chapter 1, exams over 1, 2, and 3. And so I'll tell you right here, this tells you potential short answer essay questions. So I don't throw any questions at you you've not seen, okay? So you have the ability to study for these and potentially write out your own response that you could provide on an exam. You're not going to be able to look at it, but you just need to, you know, be ready to write it. Next one, another one. Chapter 2, short answer essay question, properties of water and why they're important. And from chapter 3, possible short answer question, tells you here, we haven't covered any of this yet, but just transcription and translation. We'll talk about what that is when we get to chapter 3. But those are your topics, okay? The rest of it would be multiple choice or matching or fill in the blank, okay? So it could be a fill in the blank as well. So, all right, but the quiz is just multiple guess. The exams, multiple guess, fill in the blank matching. But I wanted to make sure before I forgot to let you know this was available so you know what to study. All right, so let's go back to presentation. All right. So kingdom Animalia, okay, the animal kingdom. This is how we classify humans. So if you had biology back when you were younger, you might have remembered, kingdom, file, and class, order, family, genus, species. If you don't remember that, that's okay, because for some of you, it may have been a long time ago. All right. But they're just different levels of organization. That's all they are. All right, so kingdom, and I'll sit down so you can see a little bit better. All right. So humans are in the animal kingdom, okay? Let's not get our feelings hurt about that. It just means that we're more closely related to other animals than we are to plants or to fungi or the bacteria, okay? So our subphylum is Chordata, which means we're chordate, so we have a spinal cord, okay? And under subphylum Vertebrata, it means we have vertebrae. Class Mammalia, which means we're mammals, okay? Warm-blooded, we nurse with milk. Order Primates, this means that we're more closely related to other primates than we are to other kinds of animals. We're more similar to a chimpanzee than we are to a dolphin, okay? So let's not get, too bent out of shape by that. It just means we're more similar, okay? All right. So I'm not talking about evolution, I'm talking about classification and organization, all right? So family, we're hominids. It's another specific classification of primates. All right, so what are chordates? What are characteristics of chordates? All right, so chordates have a notochord. So it's supporting connective tissue, okay? It's dorsal rod, and we'll learn more about what that term dorsal means. It basically just means the back of the body. You have a dorsal hollow nerve cord. So a lot of these that have underlines, these are great fill in the blank. The characteristics of chordates. And you just type down what's underlined, okay? So you don't necessarily have to know everything about this. Know characteristics of chordates and know what's underlined. Everybody pretty clear on that? Because I know it's a lot, so I'm trying to figure out how to help you sort it down. Dorsal hollow nerve cord. Okay, it's a neural tube. It's what becomes your brain and spinal cord. All right. You can have defects if that doesn't happen properly. Pharyngeal pouches. All right. So, or gill slits. Okay. So in humans, gill slits become our eustachian tube in our ear, connects our middle ear to our pharynx. All right. So the post-anal tail. All right, so it's normally reabsorbed or resorbed before you're born, but in some people, it's present, okay? So post means after, right? So there are a random, small amount of folks who still have a bit of a tail. For most people, by the time they're born, tail, you don't see it anymore. So going another step down in terms of more specific organization, what about mammals? Characteristics of mammals. They have another good example of a fill in the blank question or a multiple choice question, which of the following is or is not. So these are, these kind of questions lend themselves to that, where you might see 3 of these and one of them's not on the list, or something like that, or And you got to make sure you read it. Does the question say is or is not? All right. So hair, mammary glands that produce milk. 3 ear ossicles. Okay, those are little bones in your ear. All right, so you see OS, usually that has to do with bone. Okay, but we'll learn a lot of that medical terminology stuff. All right, heterodont dentition. So anytime you see DEN or DENT, you're usually talking about teeth, like a dentist, right? Dental. You have different kinds of teeth. Okay, so like, we have incisors and cuspids, bicuspids, molars, help you chew different ways. Fleshy external ear. Okay, so you got some skin there on the outside of your body there for your ear. All right, characteristics of primates. Okay, going a little more specific. Digits that are modified for grasping. Okay, so you can grab things with your fingers or your digits. Digits is another word for fingers. Prehensile hands. Typically that means talking about the thumb. It opposed, you have kind of an opposable thumb. That also helps you with grabbing things. Relatively large and well-developed brain. Okay. Usually primates are going to have more complex brains than other types of animals. Okay, and again, I'm not talking evolution. I'm basically saying the chimpanzee's brain is a little more advanced than a mouse. Okay, so I'm not saying chimpanzee can do everything you can do. Okay, so just disclaimer, right? So they can do a lot, but like I've seen Planet of the Apes, but we're not going that far, right? So characteristics of hominidae. Okay, a little more specific things that make us human. All right, a little more specific on the large and well-developed brains, heavier, between 13, 15, 400 grams. You have a large brain to body weight ratio. So you have some organisms that have huge bodies and very small brains. Okay, whereas our brain is a bigger percentage of our body weight, right? Because we're people and we need to have complex reasoning, right? So bipedal locomotion. So basically means we walk on 2 feet, okay? And we stand up straight, right? Upright posture. So opposable thumbs, you see that in other primates as well. Well-developed vocal structures allows us to have articulated speech. So we can do some things in terms of with our vocal cords that other primates can't do so well. All right, stereoscopic vision. You have depth perception. So like the quarterbacks that can see the whole field, or the point guards that can see everybody moving and know where to pass, or case of volleyball, you know where to spike the ball so that you get it across the net and didn't get blocked by the opponent, things like that. Introduction, biology. So again, this is another section here, so we're moving a little forward. Study of life. So bio means life, ology is study. All right, characteristics of living organisms. So all living things have certain characteristics, including responsiveness, growth, differentiation, reproduction, movement, metabolism, and excretion. I don't know if you're paying attention to what I'm doing. I tend not to just read directly what's on there because I know you can read it. If I read it directly, you probably need to know that. Okay, so if you, this is one where you're probably going to have to write, list 4 characteristics of living organisms. So like all of these lists that you're seeing here, be ready to be able to rattle off the list. Okay. And I don't say that to intimidate you. I say that because I want you to be ready. It's also, I don't know some of you I know, some of you I don't know, but I'm guessing that this class has a bit of a reputation, and I just want it to be out there so everybody knows it. My goal for this class is everyone who is sitting in this class today is in AMP2 in the spring. I don't have a goal that any of you drop this class. My goal is that you all do well enough to get into AMP2 and well enough to get into whatever healthcare program you want to get into. Okay, so I don't want anybody in here thinking, oh, Dr. Evers wanted me to fail. I don't want you to fail. So even those of you who are watching the video, I don't want you to drop. I don't want you to fail. I want all of you to succeed. And so I feel like it's my job to prepare you for what you're going to see. Y'all got the email from me that, I'm in the Texas State Guard, and one of the things that they tell us is that, you don't rise to the level of your expectations, but you fall to the level of your training. And so they train us pretty hard. Even though it's not the National Guard, it's not the Army, it's not the Marines or anything like that. It's a state service. But, I might have to go if there's a hurricane or a flood or some kind of state emergency, I might have to go and take care of things. And so they push us really hard to make sure that we're ready. And I would liken that to you all preparing to be nurses or OTAs or whatever it is you want to do. You're going to see some really hard stuff. And you're going to have to know a lot of stuff and be able to make instantaneous decisions. And so I push you hard. I give you a lot of assignments. I give you a lot of things you have to read a lot. You got to keep up with the pace of the class. But I don't want you to fail. I want you to succeed. And so if you're struggling, what I want from you is to tell me you're struggling and then we can have a conversation about how we can help you. But I want you to be successful. I would hope that, if you talk to anybody who has taken this class from me, they will tell you, I give you more chances than most people would give you. And I give you those chances because I realize you don't come into this class knowing exactly what you need to do. And but again, AMP2 is going to be more difficult. In some ways it's not, because this class gives you such a foundation. But their expectations are higher because they feel like you've been through this, you should know the program. And then your OTA nursing programs are going to be harder because again, they expect if you got a B in my class or you got an A in my class or you got a C in my class, there's an expectation that you know your stuff. And so they're not going to waste time, trying to get you ready. So that being said, I understand a lot of you work, a lot of you may be in extracurricular activities on campus. We have to approach things on a case-by-case basis. But my goal is that you master the material. For some people, their goal is jumping through hoops, and I get that. There's no shade on anybody. But at the end of the day, I want you to be ready for AMP2. That's my goal. So I'll get off my soapbox and get back to lecturing. But and I'll tell you, I don't really like to lecture a lot. This is kind of more a lecture heavy day for me. It's a lot of it is more, y'all come to class and we give you things to do. It's a little different this semester because of COVID. We can't do as many things in the classroom, but a lot more conversation. Okay. It's just that we got a lot to cover this week to get to chapter 2, because chapter 2 is a year's worth of chemistry in a week. Okay. And I say that again, not to scare you, just to tell you, if you don't have a background in chemistry, it can be challenging. Can it be done? Yes. I've had students that come in and didn't have chemistry before they came in here, and they did very well in this. And I tried again to cut everything down exactly what you need to know, how you might see it on a test, so you're not wasting time. So but that's why I'm trying to race through, trying to get as much of this done as I can for you. All right. So back to characteristics of living organisms. Responsiveness is how you respond to environmental stimuli. How you respond to the world around you or what's going on in your body. Okay, you have a stimulus, produces a response. But again, how you're probably going to see this is you're going to have to probably write out, list out 4 characteristics: responsiveness, growth, differentiation, reproduction, movement, metabolism. Any of those would account. So that's what you need to get out of this. So I'm giving you a little more information just so you understand context. Growth, more cells, increase in number as well as size of the cells. Differentiation, cells become specialized. Again, you start out with a zygote, which is a fusion of your egg and your sperm, and from that, every cell in your body, it arises from that. So some cells become brain cells, some become skeletal muscles, some become muscular system. We'll talk more about that toward the end of the course. Reproduction, producing new people, right? Reproduction could be sexual or asexual. Obviously, for humans, it's through sexual reproduction. Happens through production of gametes, your egg and your sperm. Movement, okay, got to be able to move in some way, okay? It can be movement inside your body, like moving your blood around your body, moving food through your digestive system, or moving your body out externally, moving your muscles. Metabolism, sum total of all your chemical and physical reactions that sustain your life, okay? And we'll spend in chapter 2 and 3, we'll spend a lot of time talking about those chemical reactions. And actually, even later in the course, we'll talk about that too. Because the course builds. And I will tell you, the first 3 chapters in this course, they're challenging, because I would argue that chapter 3 is the first semester of the biology course that Professor Jones teaches. A lot of what he teaches in that first semester is what we'll cover in chapter 3. And again, we're doing that in a week. Why? Because everything builds on chapters 1, 2, and 3, okay? And if you don't understand it 100% after chapter 3, that's okay. Because guess what? We're going to keep seeing it over and over and over and over again. And you're going to see it on the final exam. So if you struggle at the beginning, don't quit. If you don't do as well on a quiz or an exam as you think you want to do, don't quit. Just keep pushing, all right? So I will let you know when we get to the drop deadline where you stand, okay? So you can make an informed decision at that time, but I'm not encouraging any of you to drop. I want all of you to stay in this course. But I also want you to make the best decision for you, but that's your decision. But as far as taking your courses and doing well on your quizzes, most people do better as the course goes on. And the people who jump ship at the very beginning, a lot of them regret it because a lot of their peers stayed and they passed, okay? So don't get your feelings hurt the first week or 2 with the first couple exams, okay? Because all is not lost after that. All right, metabolism could be anabolic, building things up like protein synthesis, like if you heard of anabolic steroids to make people bigger. Protein synthesis is another example. Catabolism is breaking things down, like glycolysis and the Krebs cycle. We'll talk more about what those are if you don't know what they are later. But basically, you eat food, right? You got to break it down. That's catabolism. Then you take the pieces that you just broke down and build them up into new things. That's catabolism. Okay, does that make sense? All right. Excretion, you got to get rid of waste. How do you get rid of waste? Urine and feces, right? So you also get rid of waste a little bit through sweat, right? So that's all. So again, know those underlying words, right? That's that bottom line. Okay, science of anatomy and physiology. You're going to see at least a question or 2 It's going to have a word here and a word afterward. So, or say, you'll see the definition. You'll have to tell me which of these is it. Is it anatomy or physiology? Or you'll see the word anatomy and you'll have to match it. Okay, so you could see it that way as well. The big thing you got to know is if you see the word structure, we're talking about anatomy. If you see the word function, we're talking about physiology. Okay, so that should help make sense because physiology, even though it starts with a P, it has that F sound. So physiology and function. All right, anatomy is structure. But anatomy and physiology are very related. Big theme that you want to write down: structure determines function. Okay, we'll see that throughout the course. Structure is going to determine the function. So you have a bus, you can have a sports car. They both work similarly, but they're designed a little differently and they move differently, right? So structure determines function. All right. Now anatomy, you can break it down to several different types. Big categories: microscopic, gross or macroscopic, developmental, okay, or embryology. Microscopic has to do with things you see under a microscope, okay? So microscopic anatomy could be cytology, which cyto means cell. So study of cells, study the structure and function of cells, cytology. Study the structure and function of tissues is histology. If you hear the word histo, you're talking about tissues. All right, gross anatomy is things you can see with your eyes. Could be surface anatomy, things you see on the surface. Regional anatomy, looking at different regions like head, neck, or trunk. Systemic, you want to look at the whole organ system. Developmental just means how your body changes between conception and physical maturity, so from conception to adulthood. Embryology is specifically within the first 2 months of development, okay? That's embryology. Now, physiology can also be broken up. So if it's human physiology, it deals with humans, right? You can also look at physiology of other organisms. Okay, you can look at the physiology of cells, that's cell physiology. And remember, physiology is study of function. Special physiology has to do with certain organs, like cardiac or the heart physiology. Systemic physiology has to do with the organ system. Pathological physiology has to do with effects of diseases. So patho means disease. So if you're a pathologist, you're a physician who studies different diseases, right? So, all right. So again, know those underlying words and what they mean, okay? Because you could be a matching. A lot of those are good for matching, all right? But could be a multiple choice as well. But I would argue of the things you're going to have to learn in this course and also in this unit, this is the easier stuff. So make sure you get your points. No, I'm just saying, I don't mean that to make you feel bad again. What I say is clean up on the, get your, because at the end of the day, the number doesn't tell me which questions you got right and which ones you got wrong. So maximize those points that are, easier to get, right? Also, don't blow off the essay. If you look in that first getting start here module as the rubric for how the essays are graded, if you do exactly what's in there, you get 20 points, okay? You don't want to throw away 20 points on an exam, right? So just do exactly what you're asked. If you do what you're asked, you'll get your points. Levels of organization. All right, so you have the chemical level, so the chemical level has atoms and molecules. Atoms are the smallest units of matter. We'll learn more about that in chapter 2. Combine the atoms to make molecules. Those are both at the molecular level, or sorry, at the chemical level. We'll say that. We're at the chemical level. The next level up is the cellular level. And so at the cellular level, what you'll see are organelles, which are interactions of molecules. and cells, which are interactions of organelles working together. Next level up is the tissue level. Those are, cells working together to make tissues. Organ level, tissues work together to make organs. Organ system level, organ systems work together to have a certain function, like all the blood vessels in the heart make up the circulatory system. They're related. Then you have the organismal level, right? So how you would be tested here, you're probably going to have to arrange the levels from smallest to largest or largest to smallest, okay? That's the most likely scenario that you'd have to do. So make sure that you know the levels in order and be able to go both directions. Okay, is there anybody having questions about that before we move on? All right, so Naya, what do I want you to do with this? Huh? That's okay. All right. So basically what I want you to do is be able to arrange the levels in order. And you might have to go from smallest to largest to smallest. Okay? All right. Repeat it back to me. Okay, very good. All right. I do that not to put anybody on the spot. It's just if I don't ask you to repeat it, I don't know if you because I know I've been a student and you're like, yeah, I understand. And then you get back to set it on your own, like, I don't remember exactly what he said. So that's all that is. Okay. Organ systems, try to cover that as much as we can before we get out of here. 11 organ systems, got to know the functions. Okay. You got to be able, also you could have to match an overall function of an organ system with the name of that system. You could have to match organs, major organs with that organ system. All right. And a lot of that will be covered in lab. So you'll get a video that will cover that information today as well. All right. So know the major functions of each organ system. Now let's move on to homeostasis. All right. Homeostasis just means having a stable environment in your body. It's a foundation for all modern physiology. Now, what's homeostatic regulation? Just means you're regulating your homeostasis. You adjust your physiological system so that you have homeostasis. All right, so two general mechanisms of that. It can be auto-regulation, which is basically automatic. Okay, things change automatically in response to change. It could be extrinsic regulation. You can have activities of the nervous or endocrine systems involved in changing that. Okay, so, and we'll learn more about those two systems in lab as well as later in the course. Okay, so only thing you really need to know right now is nervous system. Those functions are rapid, short-term, very specific. Endocrine system involves hormones. Those are chemicals, and they affect different tissues and organs in your body. So how does homeostatic regulation work? It works through three parts. You got to have a receptor, senses a change, or a stimulus. You got to have a control center or integration center that receives information about that stimulus from the receptor. Then you got to have an effector, which is some cell or organ that takes commands from the control center. So control center, if it's a nervous system response, the control center is likely your brain, okay? In some cases, you have some reflexes that don't need to go to the brain, but just say, that's generally speaking, your brain's that control center. The brain sends a signal, like so say you touch something and it's hot. You have some receptor that senses the temperature, sends a signal to the control center in your brain. The brain, as the control center, sends a signal to the effector in your muscle to move your hand. All right. Okay. All right. You also have different kinds of feedback responses. Negative feedback is the most common. All right. So this one is kind of like a thermostat, if you have a thermostat set for a certain temperature, if it gets too hot, air conditioning comes on to cool it off. If it gets too cold, air conditioning cuts off. Okay, so it's opposing, right? The same thing happens with our own body temperature. If our body temperature gets too hot, body tries to cool it. Gets too cold, your body tries to shiver, does things to warm back up. All right, positive feedback. In this case, you get initial stimulus. The response actually exaggerates the stimulus. Okay, so that's not common, but it's important in some processes like labor. So when a woman's having a baby, you need positive feedback because you need to increase the strength of those contractions so the baby can get out, right? So there are a few cases where it's a good thing. All right, disease. Blood clotting is another example of positive feedback. All right, disease. This means you have a homeostatic imbalance. Could be due to genetics, could be due to infection or injury. Your organ system stopped working properly. All right, so again, some of this stuff you'll get in lab. I'll cover some of it now. Anatomical position. Basically, hands at the sides, palms facing down. That's anatomical position. So, all right. You have quadrants in your abdomen, abdominal pelvic area. It could be 4 areas. Physicians use that. You also have 9 abdominal pelvic regions. Anatomists use that. We'll talk about that more in lab. All right. So let's see. Okay. So body planes. So if you cut this way, create top and bottom halves, that's transverse. Okay. If you cut this way, create right and left halves, that is sagittal. But if you cut this way, create front and back halves, that's frontal or coronal. Okay. So you might also in lab see a section like this. I don't know, it's kind of like the pineapple slicing games you see like that. It's cut diagonally. It's oblique, but we'll talk about that in lab. All right, you've got body cavities that help protect and cushion your organs. And so you have a dorsal body cavity in the back of your body, contains your brain, your cranial cavity, and your spinal cavity, which is your spinal cord that surrounds it. Ventral body cavity in the front of your body houses your respiratory organs, so your lungs, your heart, your digestive organs, urinary system, reproductive organs. Let's see. All right. So that is chapter 1 in a nutshell. All right. Any questions before we get dismissed? I know you probably filled your brains up. You're like, I just want to get out of here. But look forward to working with you in the class. And go be great today and don't quit. See y'all soon. You're dismissed.